sometimes secret societies, the Freemasons, we have the Skull and Bones Club at Yale, Council Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergers. Probably a lot of people are familiar with a lot of these interlaced, very secretive, always very secretive groups that possess an undue power compared to, shall we say, the rest of us. Now, how do you, if you were to characterize the powers that be yourself as to where would you say are the most, the strongest centers of power and control and influence and wealth and privilege? What's the heart of the invisible government, shall we say?
I think many of the groups you just mentioned, actually. Certainly from a national perspective in the UK, of course, we're renowned in Britain for having this amazingly rigid class system, which is still in place. And the ruling class has always been sort of labelled the establishment. And they tend to be interlinked in business, intelligence, politics, the media, people who tended to go to the right schools and the right universities. And they quite often, will work within a number of these fields. So they're interchangeable, they all know each other, and they work in their interests, not in the national interest. Although they tend to justify to themselves that it is the national interest, it's their class interest. And I think on an international scale, it's the same sort of principle. So we have these think tanks like Chatham House in the UK, the Trilateral Commission, the Council for Foreign Relations. Of course, President Obama is a member of the latter two, I think, as well as the Bilderberger Group, where we have these international groupings of the same sort of people. So, top politicians, the heads of multinational businesses, top spies, top military personnel, top media owners, who come together for these informal discussions and can decide, where the next trends are going to come from, what areas they need to focus on, what to do about various wars being waged, that sort of thing. And they might say, well, it's just us comparing notes and having a chat, and it's very helpful to us all. But of course, they are taking decisions behind closed doors, which are never then ratified or discussed openly within our national democracies. These are working above our national government, so there is no democratic involvement for us, and there's no oversight. And that is the issue, I think, here. We're not talking about some evil cabal necessarily. We are talking about a lack of oversight and transparency and accountability, and that is a problem for us all. And it's interesting as well with the Bilderberger Group particularly. You go back 10 years and people would say, oh, that's just a mad conspiracy theory on the internet. Now, of course, it's out in the open. Everyone knows the Bilderberg exists. In fact, they just had their most recent meeting in Greece. So the perception of it has shifted massively in a decade. And I think that is true of a number of these issues. It's very easy for the mainstream media to dismiss people discussing issues like 9/11 as a conspiracy theory. But when you look at the evidence, the information out there, it is rock solid. There is so much evidence from so many reputable people, politicians, military whistleblowers, governments, scientists, architects, engineers, intelligence officers, a whole range of credible people, as well as millions of concerned citizens. And it's just insulting, frankly, to just be dismissed.
The question of 9/11 can be characterized different ways. Personally, my view is that if you think of these powers that be that you've just discussed as a chain, and you want to break the chain or weaken it, that you should go for the weakest link if you want to break a chain. And so I wonder to what extent you might agree or not with the thought that 9/11, that is to reveal the truth about 9/11, which I take to be, the word truth is big, but which I take to be, I might go beyond where you would, that the evidence not only raises questions about who did it, it shows us who benefits, but there are also lines that lead directly to the White House, specifically to say Dick Cheney. We have actual evidence that he was in command on that day of planes flying and so forth. But anyway, to what extent would you agree or not that this is the greatest Achilles heel that an oligarchy has ever had? In other words, 9/11 was the largest false flag operation in history, I would submit, and therefore to reveal that it was a dirty trick, an inside job, where thousands of people were killed deliberately by their government for these aims of world domination and resource theft. Would you agree that this is the most important issue, therefore, where we can apply our pressure on that weakest link? Or do you have a different view of it?
I think there are so many weak links. That's why we need so many different professional groups to attack on all these different fronts.
Good point.
And all we need to do, of course, as you say, is just get one to go. Well, we have got these weak links that have been broken on many fronts already. The trouble is the mainstream media is not picking up on this and reporting on it. Yeah. So most people are not aware of it. And this is something, I mean, how do we get around this? Well, we do have the internet, thank God. That does help to spread things, but it also makes it easier to dismiss some of these issues, because then the mainstream media and opinion formers can say, oh, it's just, kooks on the internet. It's not. It's a lot of credible people. We've had, for example, the leader of the Japanese Senate, the opposition in the Japanese Senate, Yukihisa Fujita. He's a Japanese MP, very senior, very well respected, asking questions about 9/11 in the Japanese parliament, putting basic evidence in front of the Japanese parliament. He's now leading a group called Political Leaders for 9/11 Truth, with politicians all around the planet questioning this. And yet this is not being reported in the mainstream media. We've had whistleblowers coming out. We have the scientists talking about all these issues. And it's, where do we go? And I think we need to be careful as a campaign, as a movement, not to speculate too much about what might have happened, because then we do see more and more people speculating more and more wildly onto more of the fringe theories, which then do lead to discreditation of the entire movement in the way that, association with David Shayler has caused, which makes me very cautious about speculating about actually what did happen on the day. And we just need to be very disciplined in saying, well, look, we have these questions, we have evidence that directly contradicts the official account, we need a new inquiry, and try and gain some sort of leverage at a sort of political level, mainstream level, with that credibility. But also, crucially, we do need people to go out and do the research and potentially find the smoking gun. But as well as, I feel very passionately about this, so many people around the planet feel dispossessed from the whole political process. They're turned off from mainstream politics. It's unrepresentative. And I think the whole war in Iraq as well was an issue that took away hope from people, because millions of us marched against the war, and it didn't make a blind bit of difference. So it sort of turns people off from activism. What we can do with 9/11 is use it as a key. Whichever area fascinates us most, whichever area we have expertise on, pursue it. And use it as this key to unlock the issue. It is a sort of keystone, I suppose, that can bring the whole building tumbling down. And it can rejuvenate people's interest in politics. It can lead to all sorts of areas of interesting research that open people's eyes to a wide variety of different issues that are interlinked as well. And it can re-empower people. And I think, yes, let's go for a new inquiry. Let's run a credible campaign. Let's try and gain leverage in the media and, the chattering classes. But also, crucially, get people focusing on what they can do as concerned citizens with a responsibility for their country, their government, and what is done in their name. And that's why I think 9/11 is quite an amazing movement. I haven't seen a political movement like this before. So really, it's sort of a case of get out there and get active while we still can.
Thank you very much for that. You mentioned the media several times, and it happens that I've been in the media all my life, and then I became a media critic in 1970, and even earned my living to a great extent from analyzing media. And I underwent a long learning process in that connection, because I saw from the inside that in fact there are such things as sloth, and there's careerism, and there are some stultifying journalism traditions, such as he said, she said journalism. You don't try to find the truth. Just get one person to express this, another person to express that. You've done your story, go home. And much else, of course, that is not helpful regarding media production. I would say at the same time, there's a lot of very good work done in various newspapers, but not nearly enough, especially on these overarching subjects. Now, specifically, 9/11, to me, is the supreme litmus test